Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. This is the one of first of many, shows and webinars we'll be doing throughout the year to talk about our school. This one is choosing your specialization for the Master of Animation and Visualization. My name is Alex Waite. I'm the creative lead at the course here, and I'm also joined by Isabella, who is a graduate from last year, specializing in rigging, and we're going to be talking to her a bit as well about her path and career. So, we are storytellers here at the MAV. A lot of what we do is about creating story and about telling story to other people. And in so doing so, would like to acknowledge the original storytellers of this land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are where UTS currently now stands. There we go. There's us. If you didn't see us before, Isabella is a graduate from last year, and I think we have a slide on you as well coming up. But Isabella, you're working at the moment, right?
Yes, I'm currently working at Finn. Can you hear me? Or I'm on mute.
No, no, we can hear you
No,
fine. All
okay.
good.
I couldn't see my green box. Yeah, I'm currently working at Finn Design and Effects.
Yep.
They are a film effects company. One of the recent projects that you, or not recent, but like one project that you might know them from is Sonic. They've done the Sonic films. They've done a couple of some Marvel films. They've done Creator. Yeah.
Awesome. And what are you doing there? What's your role?
So I am a junior rigger,
Yep.
but all the tasks that I do is pretty much the same as anyone else on the team.
Yeah.
But that's
Excellent.
just my title, the junior.
Yeah. As you're all going to find out later, Isabella was our sole rigger on our project last year, so took on a huge amount of work and did it very well. So it's no wonder she got hired incredibly quickly. Well done. So who are we? We are a collaboration between UTS and Netflix Animation Studios. For those of you who don't know, Netflix owns what was called Animal Logic now, and we're very, very excited and happy to be collaborating with them. We are set up to address the talent gap in the 3D animation and visual effects industries in Australia. And what that means is that a lot of people who are finishing university are still at a bit of a loss of how to enter the industry, what to do, how to apply, and what skills they need when they do get a job, because there's a lot of unspoken rules about working in industry. No one's really teaching them that, and that's what we try to do. We're trying to bridge that gap and help people not only get a job in industry, but succeed. So, what we teach, primarily, it's a one-year master's degree. We call it the Master of Animation and Visualization. It's an immersive, accelerated one-year master's degree that takes students from sort of, from generalists and from sort of, juniors to specialists. Because really our course is about choosing your specialization, and that's what our talk tonight is going to be about. It's project-based learning. So what we do every year here is that we all work together on one short film. Well, actually, there's a second short film in the middle of the year that's very short, but generally it's one main project, and all the students and departments work together collaboratively on that one project. So we simulate industry. So basically, the students who come here are getting a year of industry experience because they're learning how to work on an industry-based pipeline with industry-based tools to get that experience and knowledge. And they're taught by professionals. So I've been in industry now for about 30 years, working at many companies, in Sydney and around the world, primarily at Animal Logic and at Flying Bark. Two other leads here, Ross and Raf, also come from industry with decades of experience at ILM and Animal and other companies like that as well. And here are a few of the projects that we've worked on. But really what we bring is our experience of industry, but really it's our experience of workflow and what is needed to succeed in industry, but what it's also needed to deliver in industry, because anyone can kind of be an artist, but being an artist collaboratively is a very, very different skill set. And that's something that we help people develop and grow over the years. Isabella, so just quick thing on you. Before I get into the show reel here, you came from university to us, right?
Yeah.
And had you done some small project work before that with other couple of people? Had you done any collaborative work before?
So I did a bachelor's of animation and design. That was my background.
Yeah.
I had done a handful of collaborative work, but a lot of the work unfortunately was individual. So a
Yeah.
lot of my
Yeah.
portfolio was this is a whole character that I designed, modeled, rigged, and animated. So
Sure. How did you find going into the more sort of collaborative aspect of of our course here?
um at the beginning, kind of
Yep.
like a shell shock, like, whoa, everyone
Yep.
wants to work on the same thing. This is
Yep.
great.
Yep.
And then
Okay,
once you
awesome.
find the people that you talk well with, people that you collaborate with, your favorites, not so favorites, smart people, whatever.
Yep.
You
Yep.
all create like this big working machine, and it's really cool.
Great. Do you think that's helped you now that you're in the industry, like having that experience?
100%. This
Yep.
whole industry is a lot of um who you know, what you can learn from someone else, what you can teach to someone else,
Yep.
and that's the only way that you're going to be able to create these awesome things.
Awesome. Great. So what we've got here is our current show reel to just give you all a bit of an idea of what we do here and some of the works that have been done by the students over the years. So I'll just press play and enjoy. Awesome. Epic. Well, let's not go again.
So good, watch it
Okay.
twice.
Yes, exactly. It's great to see how good the work can get when you get everyone working together on one project. The quality ramps up pretty dramatically. It's awesome. So our year, for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to go over this really quickly because you can find all this information on our website, by the way, and on the info pack that you can download. I'll show you a link to that at the end of the webinar. But basically, our year is broken up into 3 trimesters instead of 4 semesters. We call them studios. So Studio 1, Studio 2, and Studio 3. Basically, Studio One is pre-production. We work on the pre-production for the main project. Everyone is collaborating together to come up with the story, and then the departments work on preparing their departments, storyboards, designing the assets, previs, layout, early animation blocking, effects and lighting and comp are doing kind of early concept work, and rigging is helping previs with the early rigs. There's a lot to do at the beginning. Studio 3 is production. That is basically the closest simulation to what it's like being in industry outside of the industry. Everyone's got their heads down, getting the work done, publishing shots, working on our pipeline, and getting through the work. In Studio 2, it's a little bit different. Every year, actually, our Studio 2 project is different. It's short. And for the last couple of years, we've been doing VFX projects. That has been a whole lot of fun. Izzy, what did we do with your one last year? It was the skateboarding
Skate bit,
robots.
yeah, the
Skate
skateboarding
bit, yeah.
robots.
Yeah, it was great fun. And yeah, we sort of did a combination of motion capture and keyframe of these robots that were sort of skateboarding and, causing trouble around the city. It was a lot of fun.
Very MTV early 2000s vibe.
Exactly, exactly. 90s skater video kind of vibe.
No.
Yeah, it was awesome. Oh, here you go.
Oh, what is that?
So Isabella, you are now at FinDesign. You did your BA at media in 3D animation and design,
Yeah,
specializing in rigging with us.
yeah.
What can you tell us a little bit about your path of going from university to coming to us? What made you make that decision?
Um, Kind of a leap of fate, not
Yep.
gonna lie. I was so after doing the bachelor's and trying to find a role in anywhere pretty much, I was about to lose hope. I'm
Yep.
working at Audi. I came across the MAV through social medias and I just asked questions. I looked online to see anyone else done it. Then you find all the previous projects, and it was something that I was like, I'll give it another crack in this industry,
Yeah.
and it turned out great.
Yeah. I think you got a job before the year was finished, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, amazing. Well done. Congratulations. I mean, for those of you who don't know, there's a high demand for riggers at the moment, but it's all the smaller sort of departments there's
it's
a
all the
high
niche
demand for.
departments.
Yeah. Yeah. So well done. Well done. Okay, so what we're going to be doing tonight, this is the bulk of it. We are going to be talking about each of the departments, what they do, and how to gear your portfolio in that area, specifically for us, but this will help anyone trying to get work out there in the world as well in terms of getting a portfolio ready of what people are looking for. We're gearing this around last year's project called Fool's Gold that Isabella here worked on and did all the rigs for, all our characters, huge amount of work. We had 35 students, one film, and it was 30 weeks of production. A huge amount of work
Wow.
when you boil it down.
When you put all the numbers and you do all that.
Exactly. And not that many people per department because out of 35 people, we have to make up 11 departments.
Yeah.
Art department, modeling, rigging, animation, previews, and layout are separate departments, by the way, surfacing, effects, lighting, comp, TDs, and production. So what we need people to do and know when they come to us is know which one of these that they want to do. That is really the main thing, having a passion and having a direction. So how do you do that? Here are some tips. Ask yourself these 3 questions. Skill, what am I good at? Do I have a foundational knowledge in that area? So Izzy, you already knew you wanted to do rigging, right? When you came to join us.
I truthfully was on the fence between two departments.
Yep.
I had a lot of knowledge in both animation and rigging.
Yep.
However, how I found the choice to continue the rigging path was I did like a pros and cons list of both
Yep.
departments.
Yep.
And if you guys are also struggling between however many departments, if you like art, animation, camera work, you can do a whole pros and cons list, and it helps a lot. You've really,
Absolutely.
once you put down on paper what you enjoy out of those departments, you'd be like, oh yeah, I can see myself doing that.
Fantastic. And I'm going to latch onto one thing that Isabella said there, which is enjoy. A lot of time we get people come to us and ask us what we think they should do, and we're like, no, it's not our choice. Now is the time for you to be selfish. Now is the time for you to kind of dig deep inside and think about what your actual passion is, what your dream is. Because if you do that, you're going to be working at it better. You're going to be enjoying yourself a lot more. You'll be having a lot more fun, and you'll find yourself being more involved with the industries and your other colleagues out there who are doing the same kind of work. But if you don't really like it, you're not really going to get that involved at all with that area. So number 2 is focus. Do you have a passion for a particular area? And please, please try and follow that passion and tell us what that is. And number 3 is career. What do you see yourself in later on in life? What role do you want? I'm sure everyone wants to be maybe a director or a producer or own their own company. Great. Well done, you. Love it. But on your way there, you need a path. And that's hopefully what we want to try and help you get towards. So make sure your application portfolio, when you apply for us, matches your chosen specialization. So what this means is if you're going to be, if you want to be an animator, don't just send us a portfolio of a whole lot of models that you've made and no animation, right? It has to reflect your specialization and what you want to do. And then the course info pack, there'll be a link at the end, or you can find it on our website. We'll give you all the rest of the information of how to apply. All right, Fool's Gold, a story of 2 goblins or orcs. Did we actually ever work it out, Isabella? Were they goblins or orcs or?
I think they ended up being orcs because of the teeth.
That's right, the teeth. The teeth. We had a
Yeah.
whole discussion about the teeth. That's right. They go to a temple to steal some treasure and get chased by this awesome looking monster. You can find the complete movie online on our website, on our socials, by the way, if anyone wants to check it out afterwards. Up front, art department. So here's art department is a fantastic department. I've worked in it before. My background is primarily animation, but I've worked in both Previz Layout and art department as well. Art department is wonderful, but the thing to keep in mind with the art department for all of you potential artists out there is that it is the most competitive department in industry bar none. So just be aware that the people in our department in industry generally come from a fine arts degree, so they have an understanding of the fundamentals of 2D, 2 and 3 point perspective, form, anatomy, life drawing, contrast, color theory, all these things. So it doesn't mean that you can't join us if you don't have that understanding. It just means there's a lot of work to catch up on that if you do join us. So what should you have in your portfolio? Some traditional art that you've done if possible, some character art, environment art, prop and vehicle concepts, life drawing, and storyboard. So basically what we're looking for is variety. Okay, we want to see everything you've done and ideally in different styles and different topics. It's all great if you're very, very good at drawing dragons, but if you can only draw dragons, then you're in a bit of trouble. So here's an example. Here's what we do in industry and here at the course. We start off by doing storyboards. We storyboard out the film using quick sketched thumbnails like this as a way to get a sense of how the story is going to flow and how things are going to work in context of the pacing of the film. Because at this point, it's very fast and very cheap to change stuff. Then we design everything. We design all the props, all the assets, the bags, the bells, the knives, the environment. Every single element in every short film, or sorry, in any feature film, animated film, has to be designed in order for the modeling department to know what they're going to model. They don't have time to kind of make it up themselves, so art department has to provide this in entirely to those departments so things can work smoothly and quickly. They also paint things up, as you can see from this bell here. We'll provide the surfacing department with paint, with surfacing and color reference in order for them to know what materials they're made of. Are they old? Are they new? You know, are they used? Have they been beaten up a bit? And that kind of stuff. So all this has to, jump forward, all this has to be provided by the art department. Characters as well. These were our 3 characters from last year's project. We went through many, many, many iterations of designing them. It was a huge amount of fun to get these characters down and they turned out beautifully, I thought. And environment. So environment, we have to make sure that every environment is planned out. It works for the story, the scale and the size is correct as well. And then what you can see down the bottom here is what's called color keys. So this is where color theory and lighting kind of idea and contrast comes into play. Art departments provides color keys for the lighting department so they understand what color is the light, what time of day it is, where's the focus, where's the light coming from, what's the light source, all these different elements. Is it a warm scene or a cool scene? What's the emotional state of the shot? All these kind of things that's going to help lighting department later on. And to do that, we do this, which is called a color script. Most movies do this as well. So on the right here, you'll see all our color keys put together, and that's the color script for the film. So we started off a little bit warm, then we got cooler as the chase happened because things were a bit dangerous. Then we ended up with warm light at the end for the resolution. It's a lot of fun. Modeling. Modeling is probably the next department in the pipeline. What modeling does is take those images from the surface, from the art department, and creates them. Modeling only does that in grayscale. They're not really surfacing at that point. All they're doing is creating the assets in order to pass it through to the next department. So the industry standard for modeling at the moment and for animation is Maya, right? So it doesn't matter if you can't model in Maya at this point. We're happy to see your models in Blender or whatever else you use, but there are going to be some things that we want to see. I'll go through them now. So obviously hard surface models like chairs, guns, cars, anything like that. Organic models like trees, rocks, flowers. Environmental models, can you build a street scene or a room? Assets, props as well, and characters. So anything like that, we want to see that what you've done. It's really not that important to see the surfacing on there, but the most important thing that we need to see, and industry, by the way, is the topology. Okay, so that is showing us the asset with the wireframe turned on. So we can see how you've used your topology, how you've created it, and how you've done the flow. The industry now and our pipeline is what's called a USD-based pipeline, which means that every asset going through the renderer gets smoothed. So for those modelers out there, you probably know what this means. It means that if you have just a basic cube and you smooth it, it becomes a sphere. In order to keep it a cube, you have to add extra edges to those edges so they retain the shape. So what that means is we need all our modelers to understand how to model to sub-D surfaces. Okay, it's a very, it's a specific skill, but it's the industry standard again as well. So seeing any basic objects or any basic hard surface models that you've made that can be subdivided is really important. So here's an example. There's a character design on the left. Here's a grayscale model. But here on the right is the topology turned on. That's probably a bit dense, actually. I think that's been smooth. I don't think, Isabella, you wouldn't have rigged it to that density, right? That looks like it's been smoothed, right?
That has been smoothed.
Yeah.
I think the previous, like if you unsmoothed it just once, I think that one was the version.
That was the one that you had. Yeah, this looks a bit too dense for what we would use. But there you go. It's a good indication of where it ends up because when it passes through the renderer, that's what it would look like, which means every asset here, every element, every kind of shoe and everything has the double edges on all the sharp edges in order to maintain form. Here's a nice little turntable of our character. He was super cool, this guy. And then, of course, every single other asset in the film needs to be modeled as well. All the props, all the environmental elements, everything is modeled. So some people like to specialize in environment. Some people like to specialize in character. Some people like to specialize in organic assets or hard surface assets. It's up to you. As a junior, we like to have everyone be across everything, but we do like to help people focus on their specialization if they so choose. And again, as always, topology, topology, topology. Please, if you send us a portfolio with only surfacing and no topology, it's the first thing we do is kick it back and say, hey, show it to us again with the topo turned on. It doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to be a render. It can be a screen grab from Maya. That's all we need to see. Rigging.
Hey.
Hey, here's the rigging department. So Isabella, do you want to take us through this one? Tell us a little bit about what rigging does, I guess, and what to include.
Sure. I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to put a joint in, but for rigging, what I do is I kind of get tossed between modeling and animation. I get the brief, I'm given the model, and I create controllers, joints, and the ability for it to move how the animators need for it to move. So character and body, it needs to be able to perform different actions, different movements. A tricky one is like having its arms up, having its arms out, bending, squatting. Those are all things that you're like, oh, that can't be too hard. Where it's like, oh, those things you need to pay attention to. Facial rigging, that's more for animated feature films, not so much for film, but just as important, you have to be able to create expressions and emotions. And because Fool's Gold had no dialogue, how do you create a story with just facial expressions? So you need to be able to think, what do the animators need to create a scared expression, a happy expression, a goofy expression?
Exactly.
Props,
Yeah,
single controller. If it needs to be carried in a particular way, that's where it needs the controller.
So I'll show you some examples of the rigs in a second.
Yeah.
For portfolio tips, we do want to see anything you've rigged. As I said, Maya is the industry standard. So showing us something you've rigged in Blender is okay, but you would have to ramp up very quickly to Maya, and it's quite technical rigging in some aspect as well. So you'd be at quite a big disadvantage. So we would prefer to see things that you've rigged in Maya over any other software, please.
In my portfolio, for example, I had a character, full body character, facial rig and body. And I also had a mechanical spider. So
that's right, you did too.
Yeah, those are the two things that I have for my portfolio.
Yeah, it was great. So here are examples of rigs. These are two of the rigs that Isabella made for a project last year, Monster and one of the Thieves. As you can see, the curves on the outside of this are what the animators use to control the character and animate them with. And so Isabella has to go through this process of not just only putting the bones and skinning the bones to the mesh, but creating the controls that the animators will use. So it's a combination of both creative and technical as well. It's a mix of both. I think rigging and effects are really the only two departments that are like that have that great blend of both technicality and creativity.
You can definitely have situations where one is more technical, one is more creative. For example, you can be like a TD rigger or a TD effects, and that's definitely more technical.
Yep.
Or you can be in the more creative side where it's purely just focusing on the rig.
Absolutely. And also the face rigs. These thieves, like Isabella said, had to emote quite a lot. We're not really showing you, the true justice of what they can actually do because they were fantastic rigs, and both our characters could emote a huge amount, which was fantastic. And these were these a blend of both bones and blend shapes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the whole face itself is pretty much just simple joints. And then to create extra movement just for a couple of tweaks that they couldn't quite get it with the joints, that's when the blend shapes would kick in
that's
to
right.
create that smoother crease or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And look, rigging has a very strong connection to animation. So the rigging department and the animation department work together very closely.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also very important that you're a good communicator, that you're able to work with people, take notes, give notes, help people out because, animators will come running to you if they need help with anything.
If you've worked in
Right?
hospitality, you're all good to go.
Yes, exactly. All right, surfacing. So you've seen the grayscale models before. Well, now it passes to the other department where they color it up and make it look cool. So surfacing is adding the colors, the textures, all the roughness and everything to all the assets so that when the lighting department gets it and hits render, it looks like what it's supposed to look like. Industry standard for surfacing at the moment is Murray. We do use Substance as well, but unfortunately, Substance doesn't work on Linux that much anymore, so we are moving to Murray. But we're happy to see your surfacing in any software because we can teach you the software. What's more important is your skill and your eye. The software is almost irrelevant. So what we want to see, any hard surface or organic objects you've surfaced, realistic or stylistic styles is always good, and a mix of character object types, characters, environments, and props. It's always good to see a turntable of your asset as well, rather than just one side, just a still image, because then we can see that you've taken that into consideration and you understand that objects have depth and form. It's not just projected onto the front. Yes, we can see what you've done in any other software package. But look, I think the main thing that we want to see with your surfacing, whatever you've used, is intention. Are you able to show us that you intended something to look like metal and it's metal, or it's soft and it's soft? It's always a bit strange when you see something that's supposed to be a hard object, but the surfacing looks a bit rough, or the scale or the bump map is off, or something like that. So it's really your eye that we're looking for, the potential of that, not doesn't have to be a perfect asset. So here's an example of our thief. That's the artwork from art department on the left that we gave to the surfacing department as reference. Surfacing department is given this gray shaded model with nothing on it. They take that into Murray and they spit out this on the far right. So we really went for this kind of painterly look last year. It was super fun. As you can see, if you look closely, you can see on the clothing as well, everything, it's got that kind of brushstroke kind of feel. Turned out so well. It's really, really cool. And here's a turntable of Thief character. I think this is so we use Katana and RenderMan at the MAV as the basics for rendering our films, and a lot of the surfacing is pushed through that as well. Here are some other objects that have come through. So everything has to be serviced, all the elements, all the assets, and they all have to look like they live in the same world.
Yeah, you can't have something that's hyper realistic and then something super stylized right next to it.
Exactly, exactly. So there's a lot of work there to make sure that they all fit together. All right, Previz and Layout. I love these departments. I've worked in both these departments across my career. Well, mostly in animation, but Previz and Layout have been two other ones I've been in. I love them both because they have a lot of creativity and freedom in there. So let me explain the difference. They are separate departments, And what I'm going to be doing now is telling you the difference of these departments in the animated feature world. Okay, because layout in VFX land means something very different. Layout in 2D means something very different. But in the animated, in the 3D, I should say, clarify that. In the 3D animated feature world or 3D TV, animated TV world, Previz and Layout are separate departments and they're primarily about story and camera. So Previz, what Previz is the first 3D animatic of the film. So the Previz artists will take the storyboards and they'll mock together a 3D version of the film using very, very basic animation. The characters often do what we call chess piecing, where they just slide across the ground. And it's about getting a sense of the 3D space of the film. So we use it for scouting the location, for getting a sense of how big the environments need to be, how fast the characters need to move through shot, where the camera needs to be, how we lens a shot. Previz is really, really good for action scenes, especially because sometimes storyboarding action scenes can be really hard. People who like doing previews tend to kind of enjoy cinema, want to be directors, have a good eye for photography, really like storytelling. Because at previous time, you're right at the beginning of the pipeline and you've got a real opportunity to help shape and sculpt the story. Later on, as we go through the pipeline, things focus and laser in, and it becomes harder to change things at a big scale. Whereas at Previs, it's much
Yeah,
easier
freedom.
to do that. Previs is also in our world of specialization, the closest we have to a generalist because artists in Previs need to be able to animate, do camera, model something quickly, rig something quickly, do a bit of surfacing, do a bit of lighting, because it's a mesh of everything. So they're the jack of all trades, master of none. But at the end of the day, they do have to have a good eye for cinematography and story. That really trumps everything. But having a basic understanding of sort of modeling, rigging, and other things too really helps a lot. Now, layout is another department which is just purely camera. So the layout department happens later in the pipeline after animation. And what they're doing is focusing only on the camera, nothing else, not the positions of the characters, not the positions of the environment or the set. Think of them as the DOP of a live action film or a cameraman in a live action film. And all the layout department does is lens the film according to what's going on. And so they're working closely with the director and they're working closely on the cinematography and the staging of the performance, thinking about things like lens breathing, camera shake, handheld cameras, what lenses to use, when to use them, how fast they move, all these kind of things that we take for granted when we take a film, but we have to recreate from scratch when we're doing a 3D film. So if you want to do previs, what I'd like to see in that is just a little bit of everything that you've done, really, anything in 3D space. If you've done any models, if you've done any animation and so on. But if you really want to dive into it, what's always great to see is seeing a 3 or 4 shots from a film that you like and your attempt at copying those 3 or 4 shots in 3D. You don't have to model everything. Previous artists often just download stuff to try and build things. A car can be a cube. It doesn't have to be an exact car. It's all about selling the understanding and the intention of what you're trying to do. But I'd love to see a version of 3 or 4 shots of your favorite film copied in 3D. And can you replicate that? Can you judge where the camera is, how the camera moves, what lens it is, and so on? It's a really, really fun process to do. And I always still get my previous artists to do that, even experienced ones, because it's a great thing to practice. So here's an example. These scenes here are previous scenes. As you can see, the characters aren't really moving. They're stiff. They're often kind of blocky. Things are very basic animation, but we're getting a sense of how the camera is going to move through the set, what the set is and the space of the set as well. Because at this stage, we can change things quite easily and move things around and see if it's going to work, if it's not going to work, get things to edit everything as well. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. You'll find as well that a lot of shots and previews don't make it to the final film because, a lot of it ends on the cutting room floor, but that's all the point. The point is having fun, exploring stuff, trying to make the film, cinematography and directing things. It's the closest thing you can be to being the director apart from being the director, really. All right, now layout. So layout, if you saw that scene back here, The camera here in this one was moving quite smoothly. Oh, is that going to work? Okay, the camera here is moving quite smoothly and quite blockily. You know, we had this, it was just sort of off to the side here. It wasn't really dynamic. So what we wanted to do was have a much more dynamic camera and shoot this all in one shot. And so we went to layout, and here's the layout shot. So the animators have animated the characters, and we did a basic pullback with the camera, but the layout artist then went in there and made it a dynamic camera. So made it feel like it was handheld, kind of made sure the action was in focus and panned accordingly, but it gives it a much more sense of urgency and drama by having that play up. And, you know, it just makes all the difference in the world, really. I mean, it's a movie instead of just, you know, a plain cartoon. A lot of fun. So if you're interested in layout and previous layout, you know, they both kind of go hand in hand, and we do have both people work across both departments here, but in industry, they often tend to be separate departments. Animation. Yay, that's my background. Animation is awesome. I love animation, but it's also a hard one to get into because there is a bit of competition out there. And but I do want to make sure that everyone who wants to do animation can get work. So it's really, really important that the fundamentals are covered. Now, I
Sorry,
just want
Alex,
to
just
clarify
before you
something.
continue,
Sorry, say that again.
sorry, just before you continue, I just got a note on my little
Yep.
side thing. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the Q&A because I think more people showed up halfway through and didn't hear the beginning. If you've got questions, put them in the little Q&A box. You should see it at the bottom, and then they'll either be answered by one of the behind the scenes people or by us at the end. Just to let you know.
Perfect. Thank you, Isabella. Absolutely. We will save time at the end for the questions as well. Great, thank you. Something I just wanted to quickly clarify about animation, because we do get this a lot. It's a little bit frustrating that our industry is called the animation industry, because it does give the sense that some people say, yeah, I want to do animation, but what they really mean is modeling. So what I want to clarify is that when we say animation here, we're talking about 3D animation, not 2D animation. Okay, while we might do little bits and pieces of 2D animation, and this year we're doing a little bit of 2D effects animation, it's not our primary core skill set. For people who want to apply and do animation here at this course, it is only 3D animation. Again, the industry standard for this is Maya. So while it's okay to see, you know, any of this work done in other software, we really need to know that you've got an understanding, at least of the basics of Maya, and can navigate and animate through that enough to keep up. As you're going to see with most of these things, because we are a master's degree, we need people to have at least a basic understanding of the core skill sets. So what do I want to see with animation? I don't care about if it's lit, if it's rendered, if it's surfaced or not. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just needs to be the motion. It can be a grayscale play blast from Maya. I don't care, but that's all I'll be looking at is the movement. So it's always good to see these ones on the left. A walk cycle. Can you do a walk cycle? A quadruped walk cycle, even better. A bouncing board test. Don't forget about the basics, because they say a lot more about your understanding of the fundamentals than you realize. And a 3 or 4 second performance piece. No need for a big film, no need for multiple shots, just a 3 to 4 second piece of performance and dialogue of someone emoting and showing emotion is great. Always good to see also something physical. So if you're just doing kind of like a walk cycle and just a performance piece, can you do a jump? Can you do a run and jump? Can you do a swing or some parkour kind of thing? Can you show, you know, a ball falling off something and hitting something else? Anything that shows that you have an understanding of weight and physics is really, really good. Again, it doesn't have to be put together in a beautiful reel. I'm happy for a collection of individual films or you know, movie files. That's all, you know, all we really need to see. All right, so performance pieces. This is from a film that we did 2 years ago, called Alone. And at the beginning of every kind of show, I like to do what's called performance pieces, where we get the characters and we play around with them a bit to get a sense of how they perform, what they do, how they're going to act. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a great part of the process as well.
It's also a good test for rigging to see how far they can
Right.
push and break it.
Exactly, it sure is. We break a lot of rigs at the beginning of the process. And the riggers don't love us for that, but it's good. It's good to stress test everything. So for the animators out there, you would have heard that we go through different stages. So we start with blocking. So this is what blocking animation generally looks like. It's key poses, very simple, but the timing's there. We see where the characters are looking. That's actually more important than you realize in blocking animation. Eye direction is one of those overlooked things that people often forget about in blocking animation, but it's integral to the cut and the edit because we need to know when to cut the shot. But yeah, so the staging is there, the timing was there, and so this shot was approved in blocking. Then we go to animation, the next stage, and this is what it ends up looking like. And we ended up adding some more time to the end of the shot because it was so cool. But the whole beginning of the shot, the timing and the poses stayed exactly the same as to where they were in blocking animation. By the way, for anyone out there who's kind of worried about the quality of this, don't worry. What you're looking at now is work, and this goes for every department, by the way. This is work that has been done by the students at the end of the year after, we're working full time, 9 to 5, 5 days a week on their specialization, and after a year's worth of work, this is where they're getting to. So please don't compare yourself to this because if you're at this level, then you don't need us. But please still come and join us anyway. But really, it's what we're looking for is potential. We're looking for people who have some potential in this area, and we can help you get to this level. By working in a sort of like on an industry standard pipeline and ways as well. Because I know the animator who worked on this wasn't at this level at all at the beginning of the year.
Going
Um,
off that train of thought, even for my portfolio, my rigs weren't, or my animations or my rigs weren't what it is then.
mm.
So the fact that I showed what I could do and the fact what I could learn is what gets you into the Mav.
Absolutely, absolutely, and often more than often than not into jobs as well, because we get throughout the year we get industry come and talk to our students a lot from not just from Netflix but from ILM, from Flying Bar, from Finn, from DNEG, other studios around. So I think last year we had 40 people, 40 masterclasses from industry come in from different studios, and there's really one common thing that they all say, and that is that they'll take attitude over ability every day of the week, every single day. So if you're good to work with and you have passion and you're willing to learn, that's gonna outweigh your ability and talent by a huge amount. And it's the same with us as well. Okay, effects. So effects used to just be what we would call simulations. So fire, explosion, dust, liquid, that kind of stuff. But now, effects is done in Houdini, which again is the industry standard. Houdini is the only thing that we use. It is merged into so many other areas that effects has almost been, become what's called an Houdini artist, because you now do modeling, creating assets, creating forests or cities, particle stimulation, char effects, doing muscles, doing cloth, doing hair, also the explosions or the other fun stuff. There is
It's all
so
just
much you
depending
can
on the
do in this
project.
software now. Sorry, what was that?
It's all just depending on the project what you end
It's
up doing.
totally. There is so much you can do in this software. It's incredible. It's one of the most recruited jobs out there as well at the moment. Yeah, Houdini artists, because there's so much use for the skills that Houdini artists can do in industry and across so many different areas. So, what do we want to see? Rafa, effects lead here, wants to see what you've done in Houdini, and yes, it has to be in Houdini. Although he will go over the basics and the fundamentals of Houdini effects as well at the beginning of the year to get everyone up to a certain level, he still wants to see that you've gone through the process a bit yourself as well. Now, there are lots of, I can hear his voice in my ear because I know what he's going to ask for. There are lots of tutorials out there, heaps and heaps of tutorials out there for Houdini. What he wants to see is, can you do something different with it? Right? Do the tutorial and then change it a bit, make it your own. Change the pacing, change the scale, change the weight, change the physics, do something with it just to make it a little bit your own. And he'll know that because he's seen promise you we've seen all of the tutorials before, and if you can change it a bit, then that's going to edge you way up higher in the list as well. Please show your references if you have any references. If you can do any of this work on the left of the screen, particle sims, rigid body, fluid sims, character effects, and so on, please show that. But really, it's just putting together a collaboration of, not a collaboration, a collection of all the work that you've done in this software. So here are some examples of things that we've done over for last year, experimenting tests. So this were these little spit drills on the monster's mouth, dust effects as well, kick-ups, cloth sim on the jackets, coin and bag sim as well. Love that one too. Here are a few more. Scratches when the monster was scratching into the dirt. Coins, there was a particle system there for the coins. Coins again, falling down the slope. And this was a muscle sim actually in order to, this helped on the rig too, right? This was to help the clothing from intersecting with the geometry underneath.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. And then here you can see it in shot. Everything's working together. The cloth sim, the monster bursting through stuff. There's a whole lot of, it just layers in and in and in. Actually, that's one of the tricks with effects is knowing when to stop. Lighting department. This is when it all starts coming together. So every department in the pipeline does what's called publishing their work. So instead of saving their work, they'll publish their work. And what that means is they'll put their work gets sent to the pipeline and split off into just that one asset. So when Isabella would publish her work, she's just publishing the rig. Animation is just publishing the animation, modeling the modeling, and so on. So that when a department like lighting opens their shot, they're not really opening a shot, they're building the shot from scratch. And the pipeline's pulling together the latest asset, the latest environment, the latest animation, the latest surfacing, the latest everything, and rebuilding the shot from scratch. So it all comes together in lighting, which is sort of like the hub of the wheel. So lighting is when everything you're adding lights to the scene and rendering it out so it can be seen. This is when it all, this is where we see all the color for the first time. This is where we see kind of like the emotional depth of the film, because we've been looking at everything in black and white, and now we see light, dark, color, all these other effects as well. Now, Ross, our lighting lead, again, doesn't mind at all what software you use for lighting, because what we use here is Katana and RenderMan, and we know that this is difficult to learn on your own. It's difficult to purchase on your own. So that's taught at the beginning of the year. What Ross wants to see again is potential. You can light in Unreal, you can light in Blender, you can do basic lighting in Maya if you want, anything, any software basically that shows that you've got an idea of putting together an environment, putting together a scene with some sort of an emotional effect. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to have a moving camera. It can be still images, although having a moving camera does help a lot. And if you can, show us variety. So you're going to realize that that's something that we want to see across a lot of different departments is variety. So can you show us something at day, at night, natural, stylized, warm, cool, and so on. There's a lot of good websites online that provide free environments for students to work on and light, like office blocks, buildings, parks, things like that. So I recommend you do download some of them and use them. Or if you're in Unreal, you can find a whole bunch of free assets there as well to light. But just try and do something, if you're in Unreal, try and do something a little bit more than just hit the basic kind of daylight button. Because again, Ross would have seen that before. He would want to see what you've done with it. How can you make it a little bit more emotional? How can you own it a little bit? It can be in the form of still images, real-time or pre-rendered software. And while it's good that you've got experience in node-based lighting software, it doesn't matter if you haven't. So don't worry too much about it. So here's an example of lighting from last year. That was the color keyframe we got from art department. Lighting is given a surfaced asset, not the grayscale asset. But then here on the right is what they put together. Got a few more examples here as well from different shots in the film. And I thought, hey, oh no, in comp I'll show these moving. But some of these scenes were great fun to work on, especially this one on the bottom right here with the monster and with the light coming down. That end up looking absolutely amazing, and the final product is so cool. All right, we're coming towards the end of the pipeline, compositing or comp. So comp is the final stage of the creative aspect of the show, right? So this is where really everything finishes. Comp takes all the layers from lighting and from effects and layers them together into the final product. So for those of you who understand what Photoshop is and you understand what layers are, compositing is the same thing, except it's done with moving images. Now, the industry standard for comp is Nuke. Again, it doesn't matter if you haven't used Nuke before, if you don't know how to use it, because Ross will be teaching that a bit at the beginning of the year, but it's good that you have an understanding of layering systems and how to put together images like that. So if you've only done comp in After Effects, that's fine. You can show us what you've done, because there are some very good tutorials out there of moving from After Effects to Nuke online, which is they're actually really good. They're only about a sort of like 45 minutes to an hour long, I think, and it covers all the sort of basics, fundamentals. So if you have a good understanding of After Effects, you're probably in a pretty good spot. The only difference is Nuke, like Katana, is a node-based system. So once you get your head around that, you'll find it very easy to move forward from there. Nuke is another, sorry, Comp and Nuke is another one of those departments that has a high employment record. There's a lot of people out there looking for these skill sets, because you know what, this is another one that's a mix of creativity and technicality, because it can be technical as well, but it's a good mix of both. So what to include? Any full CG comp shots that you've done, any live action shots. So that is, get a live action plate, get a photo, or even better, get some live action movie and place a 3D object into it. If you can do that and match it to that and match it so it looks like it belongs in there, you're a long way towards getting in, because that's basically what we're doing in Nuke. It's making sure that everything feels like it belongs and it lives together and nothing is jarring or nothing stands out too far. And that can be in After Effects, Fusion, Natron, or Blender. So here are some examples. So what we've got here is some lighting shots, and then it's broken down into the different layers that comp would have built. So here's the final shot, and then you'll see how that has come together with different elements in Nuke. So everything is sort of gets enhanced. You get a very flat pass first, straight out of lighting. Things are often a little bit neutral. And then we start adding things, adding fixes, adding shadows, adding effects in order to make the shot look better, feel believable, add motion blur, add depth of field, and so on. Yeah, it's awesome. I love this scene, actually, the depth there. Yeah, those, remember them. And yeah, that was our final shot. Super cool. All right. So here's another one that we did from last year. So the first part is lighting, the second part is comp. So you can see the difference between lighting and compositing, how much compositing is added to the shot, the glow, the depth, the blur, depth of field, and everything, the noise, the lens effect as well. It's it makes a huge difference to the feeling of a shot. And here's just sort of like a breakdown of kind of what it looks like. So again, it's like Photoshop, but in 3D space. And here are some of the things that comp will do. The depth of field, glow, lens flares, lens distortion. There's just so much you can do, really. And also color grading can come into it at this time as well. It's really building and adding the final finishing shots to the film. People who like photography, a bit of color theory as well, work very well in comp too. And here was that final shot. It works so well. This one is beautiful. Okay, TDs. So I just saw that there's a couple of questions there. Isabella, have you checked out in the chat, or is that? Oh no, it's in Q&A.
I've been answering one or two questions that I could answer.
Yep.
But then there's a couple of questions that you either might answer now or you might
Okay,
just have
well,
to
wait.
answer.
We've only got two more left, and then we've got time. Then we'll jump to Q&A at the end. So, yep. Okay, cool. All right. So TDs. TDs are probably the most needed people in industry at the moment. When we say there are other departments that are, that get work quickly, they've got nothing on the TDs. TDs are, there's a desperate need for them. It's because most people who have done a comp sci degree think they have to go into IT. They don't realize that they could be working on a Marvel film, right? And so if you do know anyone who's done comp sci and they're not sure what to do, please tell them. We need them, industry needs them, but actually coming through us, there's a good way of understanding what the pipeline is and how it works. So there are different types of TDs. I'm just going to go over two of the basic ones. So one type of TD is called a department TD. So that's a technical person who sits within a department like the animation department or the rigging department or the lighting department and helps them fix tools, write scripts, and bug fixing on a day-to-day basis on anything they're doing to help them deliver their work faster, make it easier, and get things done. So it's a lot of working on the fly, working quickly, coming up with cool code, coming up with cool things to get things done. Then you've got a pipeline TD. So a pipeline TD is someone who works more in the background, is a little bit more of a coding person, and creating the tools that enable the entire pipeline in the back end to work and help departments deliver assets between departments. So it's a lot more technical. It's a lot slower. It's more of a marathon. It's not as reactive as department TDs, but it's a different kind of work. So what we're trying to see, what we'd like to see is any of your experience in coding, anything that you've written, any examples that you've done, you can please send them to us. I think let's say here somewhere that you can send it to us on GitHub. Look, Python is again pretty much out there as being the top one that's used in industry. But other code's good as well, but really it comes, Python is the main one. And if you have any experience in coding Mel in Maya as well, that's a huge help too.
I was going to
So
say not so much Mel, but if you know PyMel, which is a combination of Python and Mel, then that's more prioritized over just Mel itself.
there we go. Yes. Thank you. Good point. Good point. There we go. Lots of code here. Lots of
Ah,
code. Here's an example of a tool that one of our TDs did a couple of years ago. It was just an auto roll tool for the wheels of that character, so that the wheels would roll and stick to the floor as the animators moved it around. And that's the kind of thing that TDs would do. They'd sit with the department and help them write little fixes and little tools to help them make their lives easier. And then we have production. So production are the people who make everything work. They grease the wheels and ensure that every department can not only get their job done, but they can pass their work in between the departments well and on time. They're the unsung heroes of every show. Everyone loves department production because production are both the parents and the cheerers of the fan club of all the artists on the show, and we couldn't do anything without them. So production, there's so many different areas and levels of production in industry. Generally, people start as what's called a PA or a production assistant, and then move up into being a production coordinator. And from there, you just go in so many different directions. There's so many different things you can do. You can become sort of like a financial producer, a creative producer, someone who works primarily in schedules and assigning and asset work. There's so many different areas in production. It's really quite amazing. And also it covers many different areas in the industry because a production person can move between TV, TVC, film, VFX, animated feature, and so on. There's lots of different areas that you can move to in production. So what to include in your portfolio? This is probably the most asked question from production people. It's a hard one. It's a hard one, actually, because what it comes down to for production is more about you as a person, personality wise, and being a people person. Because producers have to let go of ego. They're not telling people what to do, they're helping people. So if you are someone who loves helping people get things done, cheering them on, solving problems, helping them solve problems, then production is for you. It is a great role for people who want to be in the industry but are worried that they're not technical enough or they're not creative enough, but they've got a real desire to get in there and be a part of it all. Then be a production person because it is a great skill to have. There are many different areas you can go in, and it's really just, it really does come down to though being someone who enjoys being with people and helping people, because that's really the core of what a producer is.
How someone
Um,
would apply for that role in real life would just be a resume as well. So applying for here, even if you have a resume of stuff that you've done in the past, like volunteer work, that's also good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a really good point. So anything that you've done in the past that is collaborative, that is working with other people, please let us know. And if even if you have come from a creative undergrad, and you want to go in production, still show me what you've done. I'd love to see your work. I'd love to see your animation or your artwork. Please do. We have had production people in the past who have helped out in art department because they have come from an art degree, but they want to be a production person as well. It doesn't count you out from that. So show us everything, I'd love to see it. Okay, so what we've got here, I think, is the trailer for last year's show, because we didn't want to take up too much more time and play the whole show. But if you do want to see the entirety of Fool's Gold, it is on our socials. There we have it. So that's online if anyone wants to check out the rest of it. There we go. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We did go through a lot quite quickly. I'm sorry if it was too quick for some of you because I realized how many departments we had to go through. So I did talk quite quickly. But please know that if you have any more questions later on, I'm going to go through the questions now that are up here. But if you have any more questions later on, or if you'd like to get some more things in more detail, you can download our info pack from our website. And also you can book in a one-on-one with us, one of our leads, or even a tour of the studio if you want to come and check things out. So I'm just going to check out the Q&A now.
There was one question that Ian had answered. I'm not sure what he wrote, but I think this is a great question for you of
Yep.
ranking the competitiveness of each department. So which ones are more trickier to get in and which ones are more sought out for?
In terms of, is that in terms of getting work in industry or applying for us?
Uh, I believe that was just for applying.
Okay. Look, okay, so
Yeah, how would you rank the level of competitiveness for each of the 11 departments?
competitiveness. Okay, so I'm not going to go through every single one of them in order, but what I would say is that art department is easily the most competitive department out there, bar none. Okay. After that, just because there are so many people, it's the easiest one to, when I say easy, I mean easiest one for people to kind of get into in terms of learning software or tools, whereas it's actually quite hard to do because you need to be very skilled in order to get a job in art department in industry. Although now studios like Flying Bark are doing a lot of 2D work. So it's actually, increasing the amount of 2D artists and artists that are getting jobs in Sydney. So that's, it's still very competitive. After that, I would probably say modeling is the next competitive one, and it tears down from there. The departments that get jobs the first, and there's a need for them in industry, like I said, are TDs, rigging, Houdini artists, and then lighting and comp. they would be the ones that are sort of like the higher need ones in industry at the moment. Here we go. I've got one here. For artists with a fine arts background who don't necessarily have an animation focused art, are we expected to have examples of character and vehicle art, etc., in our portfolios, or is traditional work okay? That's from Heidi. That's fine. Look, what I want to see is just that you have an understanding of the fundamentals. Now, if you've done a fine arts degree, I'm sure you have. You don't have to have done characters and vehicles. But what I do want to see is variety. So are you able to move away from just one style of work? I did a fine arts degree. I did National Art School and I did Julian Ashton. But if I only showed my oil painting, then that wouldn't really show much variety. So I'd like to see at least that you've got an understanding of being able to do a variety of subjects and styles. It can be traditional, but we still need to see that you can move beyond, maybe just life drawing, maybe just environmental painting or something like that. All right, so here's one. This is a great question, actually. Can people work in multiple departments, like TD working in art department as well? Great question. Look, typically no. Same thing, because what we do here is we run our course like it's industry. And I know people sort of nod their heads when we say that, but what they don't actually realize is that we mean this seriously. It is a job out there on the floor. It's 9 to 5, 5 days a week. We don't do classes, we don't do lectures, we don't do homework. It's like you're getting a year of industry experience. We run it like it's a studio. So if you got a job at ILM or Animal Logic, you wouldn't be allowed to just walk next door to one of the other departments and do some work. That's not what we're about. That being said, there are some departments that allow for crossover. The examples being lighting and comp. We like to get all the lighters to do compositing as well. Previz and layout. I like to get all of the Previz artists to do layout as well. And then modeling and surfacing. Okay, all the modelers should know how to surface and the surfacers should know how to model because it's got a really nice crossover. There's one other area where there is a little bit of a crossover, and that's art department. At the end of the year, not now, but further on in the year, say halfway through Studio 3, when art department is starting to run out of work, we like to get art department to move into some of the other departments, not only because it helps them, but also because it gives art department an opportunity to find work in other areas if they need to. Now, the main area art department has been moving into has been lighting. And I can tell you that the artists who have been moving into lighting have been absolutely killing it. We've had a whole bunch of them have got work in lighting because they've loved it. But it also helps them the other way. After they've done a few months of lighting, they've gone back to do environment work and they've discovered that they now have a better understanding of light and form, and it's affected their 2D work as well. It's really cool. Would it be possible to get an idea on how you would get experience as a TD? Look, apart from just getting a job, I'm not quite sure how you would. Look, it's just the best you can do is just be coding at home, and building tools and showing us what you've got. So unless, especially for TDs, there's not many sort of internships in that area because they're really looking for people who can hit the ground running in that area, who can come on board and help solve things. So they often don't have time to help mentor people that much in industry, which is why a course like ours is good, because you get an opportunity to understand what TDs do, how a pipeline works, and how to help the departments, what sort of tools are after, that kind of thing as well. Okay, so I think we're done. Do we have any other questions before we log off for the evening? No, I think we're good. All right, so let me just move to the next slide. If you're interested, you can find the info pack on our website, and that goes into more detail of what to include in your portfolio, how to apply, all the specifics that we didn't have time to go into. So you can find that on our website. And then also, if you'd like a little bit more, you can book a consultation call with us or a studio tour. Go to our website and you can have a chat with one of us or with our head of our academy. You can show you around and you can get a sense of the space. Excellent. Thank you
Just double
very, very
checking.
much, everyone. Sorry, what was
Sorry,
that?
just double checking for
Yep.
Matt and Dominic. Apparently they had their hands up.
Oh,
Are they,
sorry. I didn't see them in the Q&A. Where am I?
if they, maybe we've answered it.
Let me see. Matt and Dominic, if you are still here and you still have a question, would you be able to chuck it into the Q&A, please? And I'll answer it before we wrap up. Oh, I've got one more question here from Kirash. For a comp portfolio, would a reel be sufficient, or should we also provide a PDF with extra breakdowns as well? Good question. Look, a reel is sufficient, absolutely. That's all. But I know Ross would love to see any breakdowns. The only thing I would say about that is don't get too hung up on presenting it really nicely, because I know how nice some comp reels can look, and people spend a lot of time and effort in really making it look swish and doing the transitions beautifully and everything like that. Don't spend too much time on it. You know, it's more important that you show that you can do the work than than how you present it, really. So sure, great. It would be great if to see a few breakdowns if you can. Awesome. But I wouldn't get hung up on it.
Yeah,
That
you can
goes for
have
everyone as
the,
well, by the way. With your portfolios, don't get too sort of caught up on trying to present a beautiful PDF. Honestly, a Google folder with a bunch of your work in it is more than enough, because we're looking at your work, not how you present it.
I think that's what I did for my portfolio. I had a folder or a Google folder and I submitted clips and files, and a couple of screenshots of
Yep,
stuff. So
it was awesome. It was great. I loved it.
yeah.
Excellent. So thank you very much, everyone. And Isabella, thank you so much for joining us tonight as well. Really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. It was interesting. And the fact that there was like 50 something people here, it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, I know, it's good. I'm looking forward to seeing a whole lot of portfolios in coming weeks.
if you guys
And
want if you
yeah,
guys
go
want
on.
examples of previous work, you can look up the Animalogic previous projects, do
Oh,
some
that's right.
stalking, look at previous students and look at
Yep,
their like LinkedIn pages and their portfolios if you want the best example of how they're presenting their work.
yep. You're really good point. Great point. Thanks, Isabella, and good luck with work. I know you're super busy at the moment. We appreciate you taking your time out to join us.
Thank you. It was fun.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night and hope to hear from you soon. Cheers.